Welcome to Daddy Talk. Today's guest is Tyrone Winfrey from DPSCD. My name is Calvin Mann, president and founder of Good Fathers Only and Encourage Me, I'm Young. Welcome to Daddy Talk. How you doing, Tyrone?
Hey, man, I'm doing great today, man. It's a beautiful day in Detroit, beautiful day in our world. I know a lot is going on, but God is good, man.
Yeah, it really is, and you know we're all trying to stay stay focused and happy and try to keep a good mindset during this time. I was having a conversation with my brother earlier, and the fact that having the right mindset during this time, and so that
Absolutely.
brings us to the first question, which is, would you support a shared parenting bill?
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Would you support a shared parenting bill?
So when you talk about a shared parenting deal, can you elaborate exactly
Okay.
what that?
Well, right now, there's been a halt to it, but we're getting ready to keep moving toward the shared parenting bill, which allows fathers upon divorce to have equal access to their children.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I feel that mothers, fathers should have, whether it's divorce or whatever the circumstance, should have the equal opportunity with those children. I think when you look at our nation, a lot of what's going on, lot of what has gone on, fathers, the lack of male role models in families. We talk about that all the time. I know that's a cliche, but you gotta have. I think you need to have that balance, and you need to have it whether it's the couple is together or whether the couple has decided to divorce. That child still needs that male role model.
Yes. Perfect. I agree 100%. We have to have, when we look at what's wrong with them, with our males, you can start at the elementary level, the preschool level. As soon as the father is not present, right, things start happening. So we got to get to the point to where we're fully involved in our children's lives. My second question is, what is your fatherhood story? I know we had this conversation at a meeting once, but I would love to hear this great story about your dad and the whole nine.
Well, my fatherhood story, man, I can't say about my father, Earl C. Winfrey. The C never knew what that stood for, but in the South, I think they just gave you an initial sometime. But I read about Booker T. Washington and Charles Drew, Frederick Douglass. You read about people that have done some phenomenal things in our nation. What I've read about Medgar Evers and I've read about, of course, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. I think back to my dad. When I was growing up, I remember talk about the South, and he would talk about how he picked cotton. I didn't understand what cotton meant, but he talked about it so much. You start to visualize him being early in the morning with a sack on his back and working to the sun went down, because he always said sun up to sun down, picking cotton. And so he was his family were sharecroppers. Slavery had ended, of course, and but they shared the land with the owner and so forth. But my father's goal was to get out of Arkansas, and so he met Little Rock, and eventually they came to Detroit. And my father had such a ethic. He didn't have a degree, he didn't have a bachelor's, he didn't have a master's, he didn't have a PhD, but he had a sixth grade education. And the bottom line is he took that education and he worked in the Jewish faithfully, sun up to sundown, so to speak. And my biggest thing is I didn't know what my did. We lived in a little apartment in Southwest Detroit. Kind of reminded me of good times, and that type of apartment, but it wasn't a high rise, it was low rise. I would see my father come down the street, have on a nice trench coat, a nice hat, and he was head, but he's still dressed because he was coming from the bus stop. But the bottom line is, one day we rode the bus, two buses, Fort Tree bus, Livernois bus. He got me some donuts at one of the little I don't know what you call them, top hat places, whatever, as we waited for the Livernois bus. And I remember I just had such a great time with him. And when we got off at Curtis, off the Livernois bus, we walked up Curtis and we get to this Adat Shalom synagogue. And he takes out all these keys to this facility. And he had keys to every door, every machine, everything. And that did something to me, because it showed me that, first of all, my father was in control of that building because he had the keys. But he also, if you don't have keys in life, you can't open no doors. You can't,
Man.
you know, people say, I got a nice car, but you ain't got the key to it. How you gonna get in it? So you got a nice house, I ain't got the key to it or a mechanism to get in. So he taught me that lesson. And I cannot say enough about standing on the shoulders of him.
Man, that's awesome. So give me your fatherhood story.
Well, my fatherhood story is I am just fortunate to be with Janice Winfrey. And we've been married over 32 years, actually. And when we, 33 years, excuse me. When I look at my fatherhood, the fatherhood story, being married in an initial phase of marriage. You know, you're married, you and your wife, you're doing things together and so forth. We were married in 87, and then by May of 88, we had our first child. So I went from, you know, a few months of having, you know, my wife and I together, to her expecting, to having a first child, and then we had a second child, and then eventually had a third child. So when I look at my role as a father, you know, I grew up in that whole fatherhood. You take care of the family, you make sure bills are paid, you do all those kind of things. You know, you fix this here or there, or you get it. So I learned that fatherhood is much more than that. Janice taught me a lot about love, because when I grew up, you know, I grew up with tough love. You know, my mom said, "Well, no, I love you." You know, but I learned to say to my children, "I love you," and all that, because my main thing was just to, you know, bring the money in and, you know, just try to do this, do that. A lot about love. She taught me a lot about caring for children, and my fatherhood story was to make sure that my children had access to the best education so that they could plan their lives, not to just say, "Oh, this or buy you that," but have access. Cheryl Brown Henderson, who was the daughter of Oliver Wendell Brown, who fought for the education case back in the 1950s. I heard her speak in New York a few years ago, and before a group of like 2,000 people, mostly white. And she said, when my father fought that case, it was not about us sitting next to white children, because, see, Calvin, they lived, the inferior black school they had to go to was all on the other side of Topeka, Kansas. There was a good white school right close to them, but they couldn't go there because of racism and discrimination, separation. So she said, it wasn't about us sitting next to those children. It was about those children were sitting next to resources. And he just wanted us to sit next to the resources. So I had that same philosophy with my children, whether they went to a white school, black school, wherever they went to school. My thing is, I want you to have some resources, because you're going to need it. And so that's what I've tried to do. Maybe not giving them the you know, maybe we Europe and maybe we didn't have this and have that for them or whatever. But they can say, you know, one day that, you know, when I lay down my life, that Dad tried to provide the best education so that we can have the best in our lives.
Man, that just reminds me, right? How yesterday we held a town hall on literacy, and it just reminds me, what you just said reminded me of your importance. The reason why we're celebrating Fathers all month, The reason why we're doing this is because what you just said was it didn't matter. You just wanted to do something that they would have a better chance, a better shot.
Absolutely.
Be by,
Absolutely.
you know, the different resources. How did seeing what your father was able to do, how did that impact you?
Well, it impacted me because again, he didn't have the education, and my mother had a high school education, but they tried to do the same for me. As I look at the full circle, I was able to go to Cass Technical High School, but I did not want to go to Cass. You know, Cass is still a great school to this day, but all I wanted to do was hang out with the fellas. I had short vision at the time. All I wanted to do was hang out with the fellas in Northwest Detroit or go back to South Detroit and hang out with guys that not anymore. But my mother and father basically drove into me that, you know, you need to go to this school. Maybe we didn't go to all the way through high school, or my mother did, but maybe my dad did. But they tried to make sure I had the best education I could have. And I had, you know, I'm not sitting here saying that I didn't. In fact, I did some wrong things. I was suspended from school. You know, once I just be honest, I had to serve in a juvenile facility, and but my mom and dad, they never gave up on me. They never said, you know, I remember one time my mother said, I don't know what I'm gonna do with you, boy, but they never gave up on me. They kept saying, I know this boy can do something different. And so when I think about their lives, and both of them, my mother passed in 2016, my mother dad in 2019, and because of different or whatever, being on the school board or whatever, you know, the Lord has allowed me to do a lot of different speeches and graduation speeches and all these kind of different things. And I'm honored. But the key thing is a lot of times I've asked my parents, I would ask them to come. They would come. You know, they would come to just to hear their son say something. You know what I'm saying? So that did something to me because I saw myself make up for anything that I did wrong before them in my life. So my father didn't give up on me, and you know I don't and with that not only not giving up my children, one thing, but not giving up on our people. You know, our black people, these young people. I know sometimes. I mean, I started out working in juvenile probation and went all the way to work for the Michigan State University and University of Michigan, and now back and then the state school district. Now back in Detroit Public Schools. So I see myself in education because I don't want to see us give up on these young people. If they 15 in 10 years, they're gonna be 25. In 20 years, they're gonna be 35. So we can't say, oh, you know what, you ain't gonna do nothing. Well, if you ain't gonna do nothing at 15, how you gonna do something at 25? So my thing is always saying, how can we help our young people have vision and purpose? Because my dad, who cleaned floors, who mopped floors, who buffed floors and washed windows and cleaned and cleaned toilets and did all that stuff. He had vision and he had purpose in what he did. And basically he gave that in a way to me as well.
Yeah. So on the education piece, right? Because I know you have been extensively, right? You know, I remember. I think it was the EAA,
Yes.
and we had ran into each other a few times. And
Yes.
um, recently we was talking about dads, but the being big on this literacy piece, right? How big is literacy,
Mm-hmm.
right? What is your take on the importance of literacy?
Literacy is so, you know, when you read about Frederick, the slave master's wife was trying to teach Frederick to read. The slave master came in the room, as recorded in history, and said, you can't teach him to read. Because if you teach him to read, if you give an N, the N word, an inch, they'll take a mile. So that taught Frederick Douglass that literacy, reading is so important. I've had a chance in my life to go to the home of Frederick Douglass in Washington, D.C. In fact, take young people there. You know, I've been working with doing all kinds of stuff, taking them to Washington, D.C., getting them in college, working with gang members. My thing is they're young, they need to have vision. But I remember taking young people to the home of Frederick Douglass, maybe at least twice, maybe. And it's just amazing what that man did. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing how he stood for literacy and reading, became a U.S. Marshal, you know, and just helped do so much. When I think about Booker T. Washington was a slave in Malden, West Virginia. When slavery ended, yes, he lived in he have a big house in Sherwood Forest and all that kind of stuff. He lived in a pile of rags in the hut outside the master's house where his mother, you know, where his mother lived. So when slavery ended, Booker T. Washington said, you know, what was, you know, they gave him, he got a little job in the salt mine and all that kind of thing. And then eventually he said, I'm gonna get education. So he walked all the way to Hampton Institute, Hampton University now, and he was homeless. He worked during the day, he slept on the roads at night. He get to Hampton, he got 50 cents in his pocket, Calvin, 52 quarters. The person said, you can't go to school here, you ain't that registered, you don't know how to read or whatever. He said, what can I do? He cleaned the classroom, he did like maintenance work, and they hired him, and they gave him education. You know, he built Tuskegee University, going and on. So when you look about people, when you think about literacy, when you think about education, this is still so important to our people. I know young people say, you know what, Mr. Winfrey, you know, sometimes they don't want to read, they don't want to go to school. I didn't work with folks that they like, I just want to whatever. But the thing is, we can't give up on them. You know, I heard a gang member told me one time, we run everything from 7 Mile and Evergreen to 7 Mile Livernois. Yeah, you may think you run it, but you know, unless you read, unless you're able to, you know, be able to communicate properly with folks, they're not going to eventually accept you. So, you know, literacy is extremely important. I think as a people, we have to take literacy seriously, and we're watching all these things going on with these literacy laws and so forth in our nation.
Yeah, and so on that literacy piece, right? So fathers are a very intricate part to the reading,
Absolutely.
to the process, right? I was saying in a debate, you know, this guy want to ask me in this conversation. I said, listen, if the first kid they kick out of daycare is a black boy, that is the beginning of him not learning.
Absolutely.
If the first boy they kick out the Head Start, that's the beginning. It's another step of him not learning. If both of those boys in that same case doesn't have a father mimicking the reading and the understanding of education and the importance of it, they have just fallen behind before they even got to the first grade, right?
Right.
And so he says to me, he said, Cal, you really believe that fatherhood is the solution? I say, well, without fathers, what do you see?
Yeah.
With fathers, what do you see? Right? So I think it's very important that we really, really work that part into getting our young men early and the whole nine. But you gave me a great idea, and I think this is something maybe we can collaborate on. Is maybe we need to take them young men early on that trip to Frederick Douglass' house, where reading
Absolutely.
was a big thing. And I'm talking early.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? My other question to you: when we see, like you were saying, the number of people that you've been around and you've been able to move the needle for them, you know, from gang members and things like that, and the different processes around education. What one little piece? What's your one little advice to that person? Right? What's that one little intricate thing that we all, because we all got our one little thing that we repeat consistently. What's that one little thing you give to your students? And
Oh man, I'm gonna say that, but also when you talk about early, I'm a strong proponent of reading to children even before they're born, in the mother's womb,
yes, sir.
uh, and continue to read to them because, and fathers reading to them, I think is important. I think when my children saw me reading to them is before they went to bed and all that, that was important. my thing that I say all the time, whether it's a gang member, whether it's a student that's trying to go to college, whether it's a student just trying to go to trade school, trying to get a job, or whatever. Reginald Lane, Dudamus Outreach, has passed away years ago. He was a Mumford High School graduate. He used to have a radio show, a TV show. In fact, I was fortunate to be on his TV show when I was with the Education Achievement Authority. Several times he interviewed me. But I remember on his radio show one day I was driving to work, driving through Detroit or whatever. He said these words. He said, "The person you are today is based on the decisions you made yesterday. The person you are today is based on the decisions you made yesterday." That blew me, it changed my philosophy of life. A lot of times we look at a 12th grade student and say, oh, you whatever. All that 12th grade student is based on all the stuff he did from kindergarten, first grade, second grade. That's how he got there. When you look at that adult that's 25 years old and still hanging in the street, it ain't because he just started doing that today. He was doing that yesterday. And so I added on to that, Calvin, is that tomorrow is based on decisions you make today. I can't say that even differently. You know what I'm saying? You know, when you look at 2030, as I was talking to some young ladies just yesterday, they said I'm 17. I said, well, in 10 years, you're gonna be 27. 27. You're gonna go from 7 in 2010 to 17 in 2020 to 27 in 2030. The person you are tomorrow is based on all the stuff you're doing right now. I was at a Coney Island the other day, talking to some young ladies about what they're gonna do in the future. I want to go to nursing school. You need to start looking at what you're gonna do, because you'll be still here. Nothing wrong with that, you know, at Coney Island, you know, may I help you? There's nothing wrong with that. But if you at 27, you can still be doing the same. Young lady was 17. So the person you are today is based on decisions you made yesterday, and the person you are tomorrow is based on today. When you look at your credit score, they don't base your score on, you know, today. They base it on what you did, paying bills, how much credit you have. I mean, think about all the kind of stuff we do in the society based on really past stuff that puts us at how we're measured right now. And I firmly believe we're measuring the future by what we do today. So I already have my 10-year goals for myself. I'm a 10-year goal, 10-year goal person usually. And I feel that, and it's hard with young people, you know, and I get that. I mean, I'm not crazy. It's hard for sometimes young people to see tomorrow, let alone 5, 10 years from now. That's but right. My thing is, how do you got to help create some vision with them. Not just what you're going to do when you grow up. We always ask that question. Well, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a police officer. What is your vision for your future? How do you want to be remembered in history? I mean, I go to all these dinners and these events and so forth, and people are saying all this great stuff about folks, and you're thinking, man, I read that one time too. Somebody said, how will you be remembered in history? So I try to live my life when one day that, you know, whatever happens with me, that I want to be remembered in history in a certain way, and I feel everybody should be. Yeah, I may not, or we may not be in the history books like Dr. King and all that. I got that. But at the same time, all of us got a history, you know? And so I want young people to look at their past, look at where they are, and look at their future. And whatever we can do to help them, that's my goal.
Right. I agree with you. It's funny you say that. My executive director, we always talk 10 years. When they age out of the program, out of our mentoring program, they're 14. 10 years from there, they'll be 24. 10 years from there, they'll be 34 and fathers. Yes. Somewhere in there, we have to convince them that is that latter process, being married first before you have kids. We have to convince them of some of the decisions that they're making, because poverty, it happens as well in your decision making. You can make a number of poor decisions and become impoverished, right? And I know a lot of people, you're looking at poverty on a different scale now. That's why you see so many people coming together in the different diverse groups, is because, hey, wait a minute, we didn't got poorer too, so I'm starting to feel the same plight. right? And so we're in the same battle. Like, so that's why you see so many diverse groups involved, because we got poor, and we got hit, right? And it was a great thing. 911 made us poor. 2008 made us poor, and then here we come. Like, yeah, let's get this, and now you got a bigger issue. My last question, um, uh, before we get off into that, I wanted to share something with you also, because I don't want to lose my track. Suicide, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that our black males are dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking early. We've been smashing suicide. We're getting ready to relaunch our campaign around Encourage Me I'm Young, right? Because we've been smashing suicide. Over 16,000 males have been mentored, been involved in our program, from literally just touching the number of youth for years. My goal was 25,000 males mentored. We're at 16,000 in 13 years,
Hey.
right? So, and we have yet to venture into, the public sector, public school, things like that. So we're getting ready to relaunch, but this time we're coming with the suicide information, right? So our new website to have the suicide hotline on it, right? And the reason being is because the voice is not loud enough. But we're talking about the George Floyd, but what about little Mike, who's 5? Black boys 5 to 12 commit suicide at the number one rate. Number one. That that being right at the top. That's at the beginning of their life. A 5-year-old to a 12-year-old being number one and committing suicide. So uh, we, I just progressively, what really locked me in was I was having my logo redesigned, and the guy didn't even know. And when he sent back the logo, he sent it back in the anti-suicide colors, and I was like, confirmation, right? And so our mentor, like I said, our mentoring program has been very, very successful in creating the next level of leaders. We're constantly improving. U of M is a partner. And so now we got some digital things going on. But my last question to you, I just wanted to share that with you because I think it's important that, that we take on suicide head on
Right.
and really eradicate it by making our males feel good about themselves. I think that's what's important. That's what we do in our mentoring program. So my last question is, it's always asked to our guests, what does fatherhood truly mean to you?
Well, I think it was a compilation of the things we talked about. But I believe fatherhood is about helping, again, I know we look at fatherhood, I got to buy this, I got to get this for my child. I got that, and father's got to take care of this and that for the household. But I think the main thing of fatherhood is instilling that purpose and that vision in your child. You know, Purpose and vision is just phenomenal. You got to have a purpose for every day in what you're doing, but you got to have vision for tomorrow. And when I work with a lot of black boys that come up to high school, don't go into school. They come to school, don't go into class, or they get in a series of. I did when I was at the Education Achievement Authority. I had many hats, but one is I did the hearings for the district, the expulsion hearings, when kids had weapons or they were fighting so much the principal wanted to put them out for good or long-term suspensions or whatever. And the key thing I saw with those young people, man, just like when I did with juvenile probation, is that they had purpose, but they had it in the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? When I worked with young men back in the 80s that sold crack cocaine on the streets of Detroit, they were businessmen. They were running crack houses. Tommy Dickey was a supervisor. He was a manager. He said, "Mr. Winfrey, no, don't tell me that." Same to this day. They have the purpose, but they got it in the wrong way. So fatherhood is basically trying to your child to have purpose and to have vision. Purpose for now, vision for their future. And so got to take care of households. We got to love our wives. We have to love our children. We have to love society. But also we have to help them with purpose and vision in a world, particularly as a Black male, that is unkind. Whether you wear a tie, a suit, or not wear a tie, whatever. It's tough out here. I told my wife, and I don't back off on it, the hardest thing to be in this world is a Black male. And we're seeing it now. People now, racism. We know this. You know, I know how people look at me. I don't care how educated or tie a suit or whatever. I know how it feels to walk in the room when you're the only Black and you gotta, sit there and listen to, whatever. So we gotta teach them that, and to me it boils down to purpose and vision. And so we want them to make successful and all that, because we always talk about success. I'm talking about purpose and vision. If you have purpose and vision, you're gonna be successful. If I can teach you how to have some purpose and some vision, you're gonna be successful. Success is gonna come. So that's what fatherhood to me is about. Trying to help them get those type of things in their lives, and not just for our own children. It does me no good to just educate Tyrone Jr., Lauren, and Chad. I got to look out for all these other folks. I'm just gonna be honest. I have problems when we say, "Oh, I just want to educate my child and do the best." I got that, but at the same time, what are you not helping the young man on around the corner or whatever? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm a crusader and I try to go around helping everybody, but at the same time, when I'm in these schools or I'm working with young people, wherever I see them, that's one thing my father used to say, "Man, Tyrone, somebody gonna get you one day, whatever. I got God on my side, but I can't stop, man." So it's about instilling purpose and vision, and not only your children, but also in children in your community.
We say within our immediate reach, which is always either a neighbor, a friend. What you're saying is exactly the power that fathers bring. And sometimes we don't have the knowledge to understand that, because what you just said is exactly, it's really our motto. We use fathers to mentor for a reason, because of that mindset that you just displayed, because we have a different mindset, right? It's important. It's why the schools want more fathers involved in this situation, because you have a different mindset. And when we can get fathers to understand that and raise the value, which is what we're doing all month, I think that's just very, very, very important, man. So I appreciate your time. Again, I know you're very, very busy. I'm glad you came on. I wanted to make sure that we stayed in touch, because I know once this thing clear up, there's some things that we have to do. I'm excited about those opportunities of working with more men and more fathers to really make a difference. I know I was, when we had that meeting downtown, I said I was serious about what I said, though. And so I've been working on
I know you're serious, man. Yeah. And let me say this, and if I can close, I applaud you, Calvin, for what you do, what you bring to the group that we work with public television. And it's just the voice that you have. And I remember the meeting we had back in January with public television, and I was listening to you, I'm like, man, people saying this, saying that, but you was like coming from a whole nother perspective. Before George Floyd, before Aubrey, before all this, you were coming from a whole nother perspective. And look at where we are by June of this same year. Yep. And so, I pray for these families that have lost these significant individuals. I don't believe in I believe we could protest and march like we did today, but I don't believe in vaccine and all that. I don't want to see us tear up our communities and us get hurt. But we got to, Reverend Wendell Anthony said it best, we got to work toward an end game. And that's what Dr. King did. They didn't march just to march. They didn't just get, water holes and all that stuff. They had an end game. Voting Rights Act and fair housing, fair transportation, you go on and on about. So let's work on that. And fathers, when they start seeing fathers marching, saying we stand up. So that's what we got to do. That's what we got to do. So I commend for what you do, and providing a mechanism, providing a space for fathers and males like myself and others to be able to discuss being a father and what our fathers meant to us.
Awesome. I appreciate that, man. Again, this
Happy
has been
Father's Day to
Daddy.
everybody, all the men.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you too. Make sure you celebrate. Yesterday I celebrated. I got me some cigars. Right. I wrote out a
Yes,
list
sir.
for me. Yeah. And you know, just a living. So I appreciate you. God bless you. This has been Daddy Talk. My name is Calvin Mann, president and founder of Good Fathers Only, and Encourage Me I'm Young. You guys have a great night. God bless you, Tyrone. Thank you for coming on.
God bless you, Calvin. Thank you for allowing me to be part of this show.